Welcome to the Studiospares Lockdown Cast, in which we talk to professionals in different parts of the music and audio industries about the effects of the virus and lockdown. And importantly, we also look to the future and think about post-lockdown and what it means to musicians, voiceover artists, agencies, venues, and other parts of the audio industry. In this episode, I'm talking to Tad Management, a global tribute and concert production company with over 200 hard-working artists, bands, and acts. And it's Tad Management that get them into resorts, theatres, casinos, and cruises all around the world. So first, a big welcome to Terry Davies, who is Tad Management's founder and CEO, and who has kindly got up really early and is in somewhere in Mexico at the moment. So hi, Terry, how are you doing?
I'm good, hence the Mexico beard, non-beard.
All right. Also on the cast, we have Sam Kane, who's a friend of mine, and also Tad Management Director of UK Operations. How are you doing, Sam?
Very good, thank you, Dave. Thank you for having us on. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure. I should point out actually that Sam and his lovely wife Linda actually went through coronavirus, and they were very, very ill for a long time. So, how are you doing now, mate? Because I know you were in hospital. You went through the whole thing, didn't you?
Yeah, it was pretty horrendous. Going back 6-7 weeks ago now, when we came out of hospital, and recovering really strongly, feeling much better. Mental attitude is stronger, come out with a new lease of life. Only very recently really kind of just pulled my socks up and, faced the wind, and for want of a better phrase, oh, excuse me, my phone's just fallen off. But yeah, feeling really strong, mate. It was a ride, and not one I'd wish on my worst of enemies, let's put it that way.
Well, that's good. I'm safe. Right. Okay. So let's get into this. So maybe, Terry, you could tell us a bit more about Tad Management, when it started, and where you are now, and exactly, what you do.
Well, we started about 2008 when in the United States we took a big economical hit. We had a restaurant at the time. We were struggling to stay open, and we just decided to move from being a cover band. I was in the band at the time, and throw a quote tribute together, because it wasn't really such a thing at that time, and it kept us open for about 4 years. Just instead of playing ABBA songs for people to dance to, we bought some cheap costumes from a fancy dress store and decided to dress like them, and it started like that. And that's how it really started. But then over the years, as we started booking tributes into the place, and then the restaurant closed in 2012, then we really started going head over, just running with this and booking it. And we have a really large presence in the United States in the over 55 communities, where there are all the southern states are all very warm: California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, so on. So everyone else, when it's freezing in the over 55 community, they come down to these warm states literally in their millions, stay in everything from nice houses to motorhomes, and every day is a Saturday. So right. These places had. Some of these places have 4,000 or 5,000 people staying there for 4 months, and no infrastructure for putting concerts on. They had a room that was multi-use. They'd have bingo and church and coffee mornings and everything else. So we literally do everything. We bring the staging, lighting, ticketing, marketing, everything, and I started putting shows on. So now we have over, nearly 200 venues that we book exclusively in that field. And about 4 years ago, we got into the cruise market. 5 years ago, hired one of the very best agents in the cruise industry, Jan Stenning, and we've become what they call one of the top 4 now, which are the top 4 agencies booking guest entertainers all over the world on cruise ships.
And of course, interestingly, the cruises have got such a bad rap during this, especially when coronavirus broke. There was a lot of news and focus on cruises itself. And how's that affected that side of the business for you?
It's devastating, to be honest. It's frustrating as well. Obviously, like everything, there's always some balance to be found. The Diamond Princess was the ship that got focused right in media at the beginning, and this is where the thing started, which isn't true, but that ship was based off in Asia. It was off the coast of Japan. Just everything met, and that was where it was focused at the time. I believe 7 people died on that ship.
Yeah,
but there were 4,500 people on that ship. So,
and do you have artists on that particular ship as well?
We did, yeah. One of our artists, Dan Bennett, was on the Diamond Princess, and when eventually, I think 27 days later, came into the port of Oakland, California, he was airlifted with many other passengers from there to a naval facility, I believe, in Texas, where they had him in quarantine for 2.5 weeks, and then flew them back. And I want to make a point too, because the cruise lines are getting such a bad rap. Princess Cruises, who were owned by Carnival, were amazing in this whole process. The bill that they had to foot for getting people around, they paid all these entertainers everything they were supposed to pay. His contract was up a month earlier. So yeah, they got him there, treated him really well. And he's home now, anxious to get back on the ship and juggle.
Very good. Have you got any, or have they given you any sort of idea on when they may think about relaunching and getting back out there, or is it cleared out for the year and they're not going to start till 2021?
Well, we're really proactive. We hold weekly webinars and we talk to the cruise lines literally every day. It's ever changing. When it started, it was, let's get out of this 2 or 4 weeks and we'll be back in. Then that line, like everybody else, just keeps moving. The CDC issued the 100-day no sail, which ends on June 25th. And so Celebrity, I believe Celebrity of 2 ships that they're hoping to push out in the middle to the end of June. But it's literally going to be 1 ship at a time, 2 or 3 days at a time. How many people are actually going to go on a cruise ship? But the biggest challenge in the last 10 days is now there's been many furloughs and layoffs. So the people we normally work with are no longer able to work.
Right.
They're sat at home waiting for the message.
You can't even communicate. You can't even make plans. No, of course not. Okay, so
jumping on that, Dave, as well. Sorry, pal. I'm just jumping in on that. With Terry talking about the cruises and where they operate, they're already under such stringent guidelines for cleanliness and hygiene. Probably better than most of the rest of the tourism trade. So that's where they already were. And the fact that they stopped this so early in the process of coronavirus is testament to who they are, because it's costing them. I mean, I know this, I won't mention the company, but it's costing them literally somewhere around about $2.5 million a day to keep the lights on. That's without making a single penny. And they're just waiting and hoping that this line that Terry mentions just gets moved, albeit in the right time. And the things they're putting into place as well to make sure that everybody is healthy and gets on the ship clean and gets off the ship clean is just, it's immeasurable, the amount of hurdles they're jumping through to make sure that those regimentation situations I was talking about before are even further, even more stringent. It's incredible what they're doing. So the grief they're getting in the press is, to all intents and purposes, it's unfounded.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought the fact that they stopped so early and they just held their hands up and said, listen, we've got people on board that are unwell was quite commendable. There's been a lot of cover-ups in different places in the world. And so I think it's been fantastic, really. And hopefully they'll be back out there soon. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about what you do for TAD in the UK.
Well, I'm pretty new to TAD, albeit that Terry's my closest friend. We've known each other nigh on 30 years. We met back in the old working men's club days, doing a tour, and we just remained the closest friends. We're closest family, And Terry asked me to come and work for him, and just to tie in TAD as a global entity as much as anything else, and the UK being a big part of the cruise industry and entertainment industry, although the UK side of entertainment has changed so dramatically over the years, with Variety kind of hitting the back seat and what have you. But there's still a real clamour for entertainment, certainly in the UK. And as I said, the UK industry cruise-wise is very big. It's a big player. And I've had a lot of relationships built over the years through my experience and my different guises within the industry that it seemed like a perfect fit. And
cool.
We never put business in the way of pleasure. Terry and I always delineate very, very well. We're great pragmatists in this. And he's the best. He's an inspiration to everyone that works for him. And bringing me in, I think, was very kind of him. And, with my knowledge and humility, I like to think that we've made a little bit further strides, because it's about building incrementally a business that is global, and I'm proud to say I'm a part of that. So it's bringing in landside as well. It's that variety on land that died a long, long time ago. Certainly, I suppose, like the early 90s when it was its back end. Now it's trying to diversify and find ways to build that outlet again, because people don't know what entertainment is anymore in the UK. It's got so many different faces.
That's a conversation that I have regularly with various musicians and artists. At the beginning of this, I introduced you as primarily a tribute concert production company, but you've only got to go onto your website and see you just have a huge raft of different sort of artists available that work with you, and you have major artists. You have Sam Bailey, for example, who's was she a winner? Excuse me, she was the winner of one of the X Factors. So it is quite a huge roster that you have. So you must be placing these artists into such different sorts of venues and sorts of different productions. So how do you handle that with such a fairly small crew, effectively?
Well, I think Sam touched on it when he talked about us when he came on in the UK. It wasn't a favour because he's a mate. It was definitely the best person to fit what we were doing. But that comes from, obviously I'm British. I was born in Manchester, but left there really when I was about 23 to go to Spain. And since then, I've only probably lived in the UK for about 6 years in the 1990s. Everything else has been over here in the States. So the disconnect, even though still proud to be British and love going there and so on and so on and so on, you become disconnected culturally because you become so connected over here. So where I was successful from a business perspective over in the States, it wasn't transcending over there. So when we bring people like Sam and Jan in Florida and Beth up in Rhode Island, these people enable us to get into areas where I certainly couldn't, and they have other knowledge in areas that I don't. Also, we partner with companies like Entertainment Events Incorporated in New York, which really helps us be successful in the theater market in the US, which is vast. It's enormous. Obviously, the size of the United States compared to the UK, but it's also very different the way they do things. And I have failed miserably up until recently in the UK theatre market, but in the US theatre market, we're incredibly successful.
So where do you find all your artists? I mean, there's the obvious ones like Sam Bailey and so forth, but where do you find your tribute acts? And there are just some great singers and all-round artists with you that are not necessarily tribute, but where do these all come from? How do you go about finding these artists?
Well, luckily, a lot of them come to us now. A lot of them are seeking us out, but we'll 2-3 times a year we'll hold auditions, talent auditions, which are for various different reasons. We also produce our own. We've got a very successful show called The Boys of D63 that we put together about 5 years ago. Sam actually came over here and built the initial choreography and the show structure along with Nick and myself for that show. Because that's such a successful show, we'll at any point have 4 or 5 casts out. So there are various vocalists, people like Jose Figueroa or Nick Millwood, who are guest entertainers in their own right, but you can't work 52 weeks of the year. And so they'll jump into D63 and they'll go and tour with them. So we have this great ability to throw the talents around. So we audition people come to us, and that's really how it goes these days.
Do you audition in the UK as well, or is it just yeah, you do? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we've done that. It's very different, Dave. The whole tribute business in America is just viewed very differently than it is in the UK. I mean, there's a certain kind of genre of tribute that are top end, and those guys are, hitting the heights. I mean, go back to the days of Stars in Their Eyes. They were the tributes of that day, and people have followed on since. But in America, it's massive. Some of the tribute artists are filling arenas now. And that's where Terry is. It's incredible because it costs so much less to see someone that's, I suppose, for fear of wanting to get shot down, equally as good, in the great scheme of things, as opposed to seeing the real thing, because, getting a ticket for the real thing isn't the easiest thing in the world these days, and it's very, very expensive.
And there's a certain fun aspect to seeing a tribute band, actually, more than the original band. I mean, if you go and see a Blues Brothers band or ABBA, even, is it Bjorn Again? I think I dipped a couple of their shows years ago, and it was just a totally different attitude than you might have expected going to an originals concert, and there just seems to be more fun about it with people dressing up and getting into it. And yeah, it's bizarre.
You go in with the expectation of seeing the actual band. If they deliver, then great. But we've all been to concerts where we go, Jesus, they've kind of lost it. And you almost reset it for 30 years when they were younger, when they started, and get them 30 years ago in a different guise, but equally as talented as they were that time. So yeah, it's the expectation of the audience, and I think the expectation may be going in, and this is my perspective, they kind of don't expect it to be amazing, and when it is, it's like it's even, you're getting more bang for your buck then.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Des?
Yeah, I mean, the tribute market, certainly in the States, had a black cloud over it for years, of being an inferior art form. But like Sam says, there are some acts out there right now, and I think the word tribute in the old sense, it probably doesn't explain it, because you got somebody, and I think we talked about Bob Anderson, the Frank Sinatra tribute. You just feel like you're watching Sinatra. It really doesn't have the feel of an impersonator or anything that is like a caricature. It's stunning, really. And then you've got people like Charity Lockhart.
I was going to mention Charity. I mean, it's worth going on to your website and just checking some of those acts out. Charity Lockhart, I just think, is astonishingly good. I mean, what a singer, amazing. And actually, there was a couple of others. Actually, the one that's doing Celine Dion, is it Tracy Shield? She's phenomenal. And actually, I really like the Who generation as well. The guy, whoever was doing, actually all of them were fantastic. But yeah, just superb, really, really good.
No, they really do. They take it seriously. They don't buy cheap. If it's costumable, they don't buy cheap costumes. So if it's that type of act, they really put the time and effort into it. But you take someone like Charity, real brief story, we did our expo here in Showcase, which we do once a year. The last one was in Scottsdale. And it's a pretty big event, and it's a large theater and a major production. And after it was all over, after 2 days, we did Charity's tribute to Aretha Franklin. So everyone that had been there for the showcase, and Sam was one of them, and then a bunch of people, we were sat, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 rows back, and we were just like, showcase is over, let's enjoy this. And I swear, we cried at least a dozen times in that show. She's so good. It's ridiculous, really. She's just crazy. And this woman sings, you just don't think there's a limit to her range. And she came about 8 months ago, she was doing some recording, and she was going to do some backing vocals, and she'd already been singing for 8 hours in church that day. And she's just belting these notes out. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Some people are born with it. I know they have to work hard to perfect it, but yeah, that's God-given. What that girl's got is amazing. So many. I would recommend anybody goes to the Tab Management site and finds Charity Lockhart Studio. And it's an Aretha show, isn't it?
Yeah. The current show is Aretha, but we've got a different show we're doing with Charity next year.
Right. Okay. What's that going to be? Well, can you tell us?
Yeah. Well, it's more focusing on her.
Great.
Doing a show from all the big singers: Chaka Khan, Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin. But we're also working on putting her on stage with two other, I hate the word divas because it's so overused, but people who can really stand next to. Charity's a freak of nature. She's a crazy singer. But there are so many on our side, like Sam Bailey, like Harry Lineker, like Michael Williams, like Nicola Ward, that have, and Tracy Shields, that have these ridiculous voices.
Yeah.
So we're looking at putting something together because it really is that wow factor when someone.
That would be fantastic. Yeah,
yeah.
that'd be very special. I'll have to find an excuse to get over there now. That's terrible, isn't it?
There's a young kid in Blackpool we've signed on the TAD side. She's incredible girl. Jenny Ball, her name is. She did the X Factor. Didn't do greatly in it, you know, and then she went away. And as crazy as it sounds, she's like the karaoke world champion. So she was flown, all expenses paid, to Tokyo to perform in the World Karaoke Championships. Now they take this very seriously. It's almost like, you know, Japan's version of Eurovision. And she smashed everybody out. When you hear this girl sing, first time I heard her sing, someone sent me a link of her. And I went, geez, I've got to get this kid. So I phoned her up. She's the most normal, down-to-earth girl from Blackpool, you know, with a northern accent. And then she opens her mouth. My God, she just blew me away. Right. And she's got a great future. We're working on her now. And like Terry said, putting the divas on stage, she's going to be one of them.
Excellent. Incredible. That sounds really exciting. So let me ask you this then. This lockdown, this period, which none of us have experienced before in any industry. So, but what has this meant for the artists that you represent? I mean, obviously they haven't been able to go out and work. So, what have they been doing meanwhile?
A lot of them are doing these quarantine videos where, you know, we're at home singing. I think this is all ever evolving as well.
Yeah.
They're just, you know, I think a lot of them have had some financial help from the government, certainly over here in the States, and I think it's been like that. So it has helped to ease the pain of this. And I think most of them, as we did, thought this is going to be a relatively short thing, a couple of months, and we'll start getting back to it. I think once that government money starts to run out, if we don't get back this year, then the pain, you know, then it will really start getting to it. I also feel for a lot of our tech people, there are so many people that we hire, I mean, by the dozens over here, sound guys, light technicians, roadies, just a lot of those, they don't have an outlet. They don't have a creative outlet, first of all, to go on and sing a song, you know, and they don't have a financial outlet. And it's very tough for them. And we're doing our part in trying to help everybody mentally. In fact, Jan, the girl that runs our cruise division, literally has calls scheduled that she actively pursues every day with our artists and their families. And
right, really, okay. Oh, fantastic.
She just does it to get them all on Zoom, talks to them, keeps it positive, but it's really just a mental outreach to try and keep everybody positive and open and answer questions and, you know, just not be silent.
Yeah. Sorry, Sam.
I'm just saying, just touching base is so important during this time. I mean, even we've got a house full of people, and every now and again, you know, you're just talking to the same people every day, and, you know, that seems like it's enough, but just the outlet, it's the wall, isn't it? It's the subliminal wall that we've had forced in front of us. It's just, it can bring people down. I've got to congratulate Terry on this, because his view on all of this and the way he looks at it and his resolve through all of this has just been inspirational. You know, it sounds like a little bit of a blowing smoke, but it's not. He's an inspiration. The way he's done it and the way he runs his company. And we've been having meetings with some of the cruise companies about when to start and how to go forward, and when this finally does lift, how things are going to be. And they're all saying, nobody's doing it like you. Nobody's doing it like you. You're a million miles ahead.
Well, I think that's quite apparent by the way you talk about your artists. There is you obviously care about what's going on, and that comes across, really comes across actually.
Well, I think that comes across because we've been there, Dave. You know, we've all been that guy, you know, and we know how we would want to be treated.
Yeah, I'm in that queue as well.
Yeah, we're all there. We were all on that spotlight. And I think it's got to be apparent, because you have to have the empathy as well as the sympathy. And, you know,
Okay. So looking forward then, so let's just talk finally about post-lockdown, after this lockdown finishes, and of course it's going to be staggered around the world as we're already experiencing, and a lot of Europe are now back working. In fact, I had some friends tell me in Spain that some of the bars have started to open, and it's just starting to come to life again. I don't know how that is in the US for you. We are seeing all sorts of reports in the UK about how the US has responded to this lockdown, and some simply just have not want to be a part of it and demonstrated against it, and others have taken it very seriously. But as we come out of lockdown, you know, it's one thing to go into bars, it's one thing to go into a store and buy something, but it's a totally different thing to go to, you know, to a gig, a concert, a theatre, you know, where you're, you know, all be packed together. So what's your take, or what's your feeling on the return of audiences, about how audiences might feel about getting back into a packed theatre or arena even?
Just to touch on what you said about the US, one of the challenges in the US is that we have 50 states.
Yeah.
And each state has a governor. So it's kind of like having 50 countries, even though it's governed by one president. So that's where the dichotomy comes from one state to another. And of course, if you're in New York City, that's a whole lot different than being in Iowa.
Yeah, of course.
And so on. You pointed out at the beginning of the show that I'm down here in Mexico. Well, we came down here this week. In Phoenix, we're already, the bars are opening, the restaurants are now opening for dine-in, but with limited people and so on. And the shopping malls are open, and people going grocery shopping. But down here in Cabo, they were about a month later to react to this. They don't have many cases, so they've been really on top of it. And people are really adhering to the rules down here, but everywhere's closed. Right. There's not a restaurant open. If you go in a store, everybody is wearing a mask, period. You know?
Right. Okay.
So there's all of that. I'm hopeful that when as we get back to normal, some common sense starts to prevail, because over in the States, they're talking about opening in the churches. Some of these churches have 2,000 people in them. If they're going to have 2,000 people in a church, you can have 500 people in a theater.
Yes,
that's just common sense. You know, the virus doesn't discriminate from one building to another. So I'm hoping that that as time goes on, and as people become more aware of what we're dealing with, that common sense will prevail, and we'll start getting back to this. Because if we don't, the economic impact on our industry, we've already got theatres that were suffering economically already, gone under. That's going to be magnified next year if we don't get out this quickly. So hopefully, you know, common sense will prevail.
Yeah, I think it's much the same here, isn't it, Sam? I mean, there's pubs that have really tried to support music that were struggling before the lockdown, and you do wonder if they're going to open on the other side of this. But yeah, we need to get back out to gigs and support the industry wherever possible. So, but
vaccination sorts all this out, Dave. As soon as a vaccine comes in, you know, everybody kind of take their foot off the pause button and, you know, get out. And it will be tentative, because it's a mindset. You know, we've kind of been forced into thinking a different way, and it will take time. But, you know, maybe people will be cautious for the right reasons. Like Terry says, you know, common sense will prevail. Maybe people will be a little bit nicer to each other in the future. That's the big hope.
We can always hope. So just finally then, let's just ask about musicians themselves post-lockdown. You know, are there going to be different ways of earning money? I mean, there's already been a real trend we know about performing online, but that's hard to monetize. There are some that are actually getting into education, so they're having courses made and they're teaching. There's some real success stories out there with like Scott Space lessons and so forth, who have done really, really well out of being a musician, you know, at some evenings, and then trying to, you know, monetize it with education during the day. So that's one way. But do you think there are opportunities for musicians beyond the obvious at the moment?
Do you mean right now or in the future?
Well, as we come out of lockdown.
I just think the only way to really move forward is to do what we've always done. I don't think people go to concerts to watch the show. I think people go to concerts to take part in the experience.
Right.
You know, we can watch. We can use a tribute band, the Illegal Eagles, in the UK. They've got an amazing DVD out, and it's incredible quality. You put it on there, watch it, fantastic. It's nothing like going to the theatre and watching the show. And that's why we go. So there are going to be ways to get by, but to move forward, we've got to get back on stage and have people coming in and taking part in the experience with us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, a good place to end, I think. So I must put this in because it's a blatant ad. That's how I work. Sam, you're a big Studiospares user, actually, aren't you? You use.
I am, yeah, I am. I'll show you, actually. There you go. There's my Studiospares mic right there. There you go.
Nice. 2000. Yeah, it's lovely. And because you've got your radio show as well on Sunday mornings, which we should also.
Second City Radio, yeah.
So where can people listen to that show, Sam?
You can get online, Second City Radio, www.secondcityradio.net, and I'm on a Sunday. Don't listen to anybody else.
And excellent. Listen, and I urge anybody to go onto Tad Management's sites, which is it tadmanagement.com? Is that correct?
Yeah, there's TADMGMT or tadshows.com.
Oh, tadshows.com. Go on there and check out some of the artists. They are just superb, some of them. So listen, guys, thank you so much, and especially for getting up early and talking to us from Mexico. And I hope to see you guys very soon. Stay safe. See you later. Cheers.